Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you very much for coming. We have here with us Mr. Adeola, who is a human rights lawyer based in Nigeria and an international law expert with career expertise and experience cutting across UN advocacy, grassroots advocacy back home in Nigeria, and advocacy with government, and just cutting across various stratas of government and development. And we have Lucas also here with us. Lucas is joining us from Portugal, and Lucas works with Transparency International, and he will be sharing with us anecdotes from his career, from his experience working on issues in Equatorial Guinea and working with Transparency International. So we would begin by calling on Mr. Adeola and Mr. Lucas afterwards to introduce themselves, tell us about their areas of practice, and just overall what they have been up to in their career at the moment. So over to you.
Okay, thank you, Hillary, for having me. Yes, my name is Adeola Austin Oyinlade. I'm a Nigerian lawyer. I've practiced law for over a decade now. I'm a grassroots advocate for human rights in Nigeria. I've engaged government, every institution in Nigeria in terms of expanding the frontiers of human rights. I've been privileged to also work as a resource person to African Union Commission, that's the regional body in the continent of Africa, where I've been privileged to deliver papers, speak, and ask governments in the continent of Africa to reform national laws in compliance with the African Youth Charter. You may ask me, what's the meaning of African Youth Charter? African Youth Charter is a regional instrument that enshrines the rights and responsibility of young people. I've been privileged as well to grace the UN speaking platforms in a number of countries all over the world. And by the grace of God, as a result of my consistent human rights advocacy, pro bono legal services for the poor in my country, I was named by the World Body of Lawyers, IBA, as a Human Rights Lawyer of the Year in 2018. Yes, my area of practice, I will call it public law. Public law generally comprises of constitutional law, litigation, statutory interpretation, and where it's necessary, alternative dispute resolutions, and so on and so forth. So in Nigeria, where I grew up, we have a plethora of human rights challenges, and I've been able to also provide solutions in some areas. In Nigeria, we have a mobile application called Know Your Rights Nigeria. So it's the first ever mobile application, as in human rights empowerment app that enshrines rights of Nigerians and foreign nationals living in Nigeria in multiple languages: English, Pidgin, spoken widely in Central and West African countries, and in major local languages: Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, spoken by over 100 million Nigerians. The list is on and on, but I wouldn't know if Hillary still want me to continue or you want to stop me here. Basically, that's what I'm into, public law, particularly human rights, because human rights is key in everything we do. Hardly will you do anything without having a nexus with human rights. So for those who are studying human rights, or their area of specialization is human rights, I actually want to congratulate you, because your field has a wider scope and nexus with every areas of life.
All right. Thank you, Adeola. And Lucas, over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me here today. I was impressed already hearing Adeola's bio, because I think as he ended saying, everything we do has a link, or somehow we need to link it basic human rights all over the world. So having said that, and I have to take the opportunity to also mention that in 2011 I was part of an event in Malabo in Equatorial Guinea, my home country, where the African Youth Charter was being debated and promoted because they needed more signatures. And to be honest, that in 2011 was probably one of the key moments possibly in my life, because before that event taking place in Malabo, I was started working at the University of Zaragoza in Spain as an assistant to a professor, and then managing a European Union scientific project, which was not related to law at all. But I then moved to Barcelona, where I started working in the area that I think I know most about, is on governance and anti-corruption. I was working for Dow Jones Risk and Compliance. It's a private company that provides inside information or a database on publicly exposed persons. This is meant to monitor the illicit financial flows around the world. And this is for me, it was already an eye-opening area of work that I started with. But while I was in Barcelona, I then decided to attend to this big meeting taking place in Malawi, the African Union annual meeting. I was happy to go back home for a few. It was almost a month in Malabo, and then suddenly I decided to drop my job, to stop doing what I was doing, and to start something completely new for me, which was to be a volunteer for the African Union Youth Commission. I think it was the name. And I was meant to be in Khartoum in Sudan. But by the time I left my job, I resigned, I gave everything back, my keys and everything. I got a communication from the African Union that the assignment was no longer happening, and that they would get back to me at some point. So I was left somehow jobless for a moment. But anyway, I was not going to be paid anyways in Khartoum. I was going to be a volunteer. But that, as I said, was an important point, because then I said, this is a moment for me to decide exactly what I want to do in my life. And I started looking around, and I was already involved in the anti-corruption field. And that's how I joined Transparency International. And in 2011, 12, I think, I joined Transparency International. I spent almost 7 years at the Secretariat in Berlin. And that allowed me to work on anti-corruption issues in Central Africa, mostly in Cameroon, Equatorial, but not Equatorial Guinea because we didn't have an office there, but overseeing the activities around Central Africa. And from there, I moved to other countries. I was lucky enough to be in countries like Argentina, like Jamaica, in South Africa, or in Ghana, in Nigeria, of course. Just just to share my experience and then my some of the things that I thought were important. However, and I will finish with this, I won't be too long. However, as Adeola said, human rights was always something that was coming again and again, coming back and again and again. Each time an activist, an anti-corruption activist, was being harassed, there was the need to react. In Cameroon, we had a mayor in the city that was arrested for years, and we had to fight for him to be out. Unfortunately, he died just this week because of COVID. But it was I remember that as something that was something that pushed us to move from not only talking about corruption but also human rights, and we have examples like this in many countries. But I'm going to stop there just to get back to you.
Thank you very much. That was just really exciting to hear about that. And just following up on what you mentioned, Lucas, I was wondering, during the period of time when you resigned from your job and then the AU canceled the mission which you were supposed to work on, what was there anything you learned? Was there any what kept you going, what kept you moving, and what lessons did you think you learned from that, which you think students should know and which might come in handy over the course of our careers?
That event was just something. It was just something that just happened. Before that, I made my mind already, right? I already knew that I needed to get more involved in governance issues in Africa. So I was, of course, working in Barcelona as an analyst for African countries. But honestly, I didn't see that I was making an impact, a direct impact on what my peers and my brothers were suffering in my country and also in neighboring countries. So that's already something that made me think, as I said, even before that I would like to get more involved in something that impacts more directly my fellow citizens.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Austin, I was wondering, was there anything, what sparked your interest in public law, in human rights? Was there, say, any occurrence, or was there maybe a talk you attended, something you partook in that made you to take interest in human rights and pursue it as, a path for your career?
Okay. If you live in Nigeria, many things will make you an activist first before you want to take it further. Nigeria as a country, we're not really doing well in terms of human rights. Yes, we are trying our best, but the best is not actually the best. But this challenge, we've linked it up with the fact that maybe because we had over 3 decades of military rules in the country, maybe that's why that culture of impunity at times still prevalent. But generally, I detest injustice. I can't stand it when the rights of people around me are violated at will, flagrantly. And this could be in form of an individual to an individual. And it could be also the institution. When you see people, they don't want to have access to the security forces because people are scared that they could be arrested, they could be tortured. You start wondering that you can't just sit down and be looking without doing anything about it. So most Nigerians, generally, by virtue of the kind of life we live, we are all activists. We all want things to get done properly. Okay, but if you get to a level, you start seeing it that, you need to go professional, because as being an activist alone may not be enough. You may want to say no to injustice, but how do you take it further to ensure justice or to enforce rights? So that's where the professionalism aspect of expanding frontiers of human rights comes in, and you start looking for avenue to become a genuine social engineer and problem solver. So when you start looking in that areas, then you think, okay, how do I take it? Where do I take it to? At least to make sure that in enforcing the right of the people, you can have access to institutions actually legally set up to enforce right of people. That the idea of coming to study law came. So I said, okay, if I become a lawyer, I will definitely be a social engineer. So I will not need to speak to anybody or lobby anybody before I can get justice for those who are oppressed. So I will be able to assess the established system, use my legal expertise, okay, to get freedom for people. And it will be easier for me to do that pro bono because I don't need to engage the services of other lawyers and pay them. So the idea came. Right from my undergraduate days, I'm happy that a lot of students are listening to this. During my undergraduate days in the University of Lagos, the first semester in the academic session, I would do my best to make sure that I study well and I write my exams. After my exams, my holiday is for public interest issues. During my undergraduate days, I've looked at the bills before the National Assembly. That was when we were clamoring for freedom of information bill laws in Nigeria. And I discovered some ambiguities in some of the laws, the bills before the National Assembly. And I had to work on it during my holidays and publish it. So I got an invitation by a lot of national media to speak on the subject matter so that the National Assembly can look into it before they eventually pass the bill. And I did that. And during my undergraduate as a university, I couldn't wait till I will become a graduate before I start using that expertise or knowledge of law to start solving problems. So I came with the idea of a radio program called Know Your Right Nigeria. So what we're doing on the radio program is owned by the University of Lagos. It's called Unilad Radio. So weekly, I start to simplify right of the people, asking people to call in on the shows to share legal issues that arise in their daily life with us. And from there, I started bringing in non-lawyers because then I was not yet calling to the Nigerian bar. So I wanted to do something very fast before becoming a lawyer. So I was bringing senior lawyers, non-lawyers. I would ask people to share legal issues, human rights issues they have with us. I will compare those lawyers to assure people that they will take those matters up pro bono, free of charge. And we started in that way. So I was getting myself groomed, prepared for the task ahead. And by the time I was called to the Nigerian bar, so it was easier for me to take up some of all these issues. And today, it's something one has prepared for. Something injustice you detest right from the beginning, and you have a platform where you can garner all the necessary experiences, expertise, the knowledge, the technical know-how to enforce the right of people. So just leaving the university, coming out from the law school, I couldn't even wait at the law school because even at the law school, I was already having series of calls, emails, people asking us to help them because even the radio programs won a lot of national award because that will be the first time we will be simplifying human rights to the understanding of ordinary man on the street. So they discovered that, okay, that platform was sufficient enough for a lot of people to get justice. So by the time I was coming from the law school, it was like, oh, a lot of people have been waiting. So, and from there, we started defending people where necessary. There was even a time I was on the street of Lagos with 25 young lawyers with me a couple of years back. I think that was 2010, where we were sharing Constitution, Nigerian Constitution. I actually bought 10,000 copies of the Nigerian Constitution, shared it with people. It will interest you that a lot of people were seeing the Nigerian Constitution for the first time. We're not only sharing the Constitution, we're simplifying the right, we're showing people where they could find their rights, and people were like, oh, so I have freedom of expression. So I have freedom of association. There were people that were in the local market, some association will be forcing them to pay some dues. So they now got to know that they cannot be a slave to be paying some amount of money, except they choose to be a member of that organization. So they started learning getting to know about the scope of their right and the limitations. So it was a very, very massive and interesting and the kind of a feedback we got from the people. And that encouraged us to also make sure that a lot of people outside Lagos were having access to us, and we introduced mobile technology.
Wow, that has, answered a lot of questions. When you were speaking, I was just thinking about how, your narration of your experience over beginning from your undergraduate days up to the law school and then post-law school just shows the need for current students not to wait for a perfect opportunity, because there's really no perfect opportunity. So wherever you are, just show initiative. And, I was just wondering, Lucas, do you have anything to say? What challenges have you experienced in your work, and what inspired you to, work in human rights?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, when I had this turning point, when I was, I felt like my expertise on governance issues was needed to have this stronger human rights angle. I realized that one of the basic needs or elements that I could tackle would be the assistance to people that are actually fighting on the ground on human rights. So I started a few ideas. One of the first ones, even after graduation or right after graduation, was to put together the bunch of laws of Equatorial Guinea, because I don't know, other countries might have similar things, but in Equatorial Guinea, there's no single point where you can retrieve all the legislation in the country. So you might not find this in other contexts. But right now, I created a website where I did put all these laws that I could find from colleagues and friends and things like that. And I think it's one of the most consulted websites for Equatorial Guinean legislations, because even government websites would not have that much number of laws available. So having said that, that made me from the very beginning to gather a lot of information, a lot of elements that are now helping me a lot, much more than I even expected, to assist a lot of lawyers in Equatorial. I'm registered at the Bar Association of Malabo, where colleagues, I would now say friends of mine, are the ones actually doing the hard work of going to court and defend people. But I think what I managed to do was to put together, and this is what I'm currently doing, put together a project that is, we have a legal clinic that provides legal assistance for all activists, any kind of activists in the country that would need assistance. Why? Because again, as we said before, those that need support, so without the element of human rights, you won't see a genuine change in society. So I think I'm very proud. I think I have to say that I'm very proud of this one. If I'm not being humble about it right now, but I'm very proud that we managed to put together a number of lawyers, and that's why I'm the secretary of the Commission of Jurists of Equatorial Guinea. A number of lawyers that are the only ones in the country that actually defend human rights activists in Equatorial Guinea, and that's for me a lesson learned to say, even wherever you are, wherever country even you are, you can do something. There is always a way to support. Maybe if you cannot do it directly, you can support others on their job, on one of the most difficult tasks, that is to defend human rights.
Thank you so much. And this theme just keeps coming up from both your narratives, just showing initiative wherever you are and at whatever stage you are. And I think that's really important, because it is so easy to think that, oh, what can I do? I'm just in law school, or, I'm struggling to just, pass my class and deal with my student loans and my personal problems. And you lose sight of the bigger picture and how much you can do regardless of, whatever feelings you have or whatever shortcomings you might think that you are contending with. And when you both spoke, I was just wondering, if you were to go back to the start of your careers, what's one thing that you would have done differently? What's something that you think that, based off the experience you have right now, looking back, this is something that I definitely would have done differently? Anyone can go ahead.
Okay. Before I actually answer that question, let me also add this for the purpose of students listening to us or watching us. Yeah, aside from the fact that I engage the system as an undergraduate, let me also inform you that during my breaks then, as an undergraduate student, I was doing the research on the then MDGs. It used to be called MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, before now called SDGs, that I was working on, providing solutions, looking at the challenges, sending it to the office of the UN Secretary General. I did in so many years. And it got to a time, third year, I think consecutively, I got a message on behalf of the then UN Secretary General commending me for my consistent providing solutions. Okay, so I'm emphasizing this, that even as a student, you could be preferring solutions, identify some problems, issues, human rights issues in a particular region or in a particular country, and prefer solutions. You will never know who is watching. Okay, then again, if there was anything, or if there's anything I would like to do better, is my use of social media. Let me even tell you that most of the work that I was doing then, aside getting them published on the national dailies, I was putting on my social media platform. Then the popular one then, when I was leaving the university, even during my master's degree, was Facebook. So you will not believe it, that international organization actually discovered that my expertise in the area of constitutional law and human rights on the social media platform. So social media platforms should not be about gist alone, about, yes, we have to gist, we have to play, we have to, after series, rigorous reading, research, we have to catch fun. But of course, that platform of yours, that social media platform, should also be a platform where people can identify or recognize your expertise. It was actually on the social media platform like Facebook when I was posting my research, solutions, critique of national issues and providing solutions, that I was actually discovered even by someone from the African Union when I got invitation to come and deliver papers. And then, so that one is that. So if there is anything I would like to do better as a student at that level, is using my social media platform to promote my nuisance values, for people to identify with what my competency, my capacity, my professionalism, my expertise. So that one is very, very important. What I will have maybe, as a human rights lawyer, if there is anything I would do better, maybe I will have, when I started then as a radio presenter, I will have approached so many partners to put these on as many radio stations across the country. Nigeria is actually a population of a population of 200 million people. The Lagos that I was covering at that point in time was the population of 22 million people. And it got to a time that a lot of people outside Lagos, in the southeastern part of Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, were actually calling us for intervention to help them, to defend them. So at that point in time, I did not know what to do, because to place a radio show on radio stations, it's it involves a whole lot of money. And what makes it conducive for me on the Unilag radio was simply because I was already known on the and representing University of Lagos, winning an award for the University of Lagos. So it was comfortable for University of Lagos to give me a radio platform to continue the project without charging us. So a lot of people will ask me, come to radio, come and do, replicate the same thing on other radio stations. But I was looking at the expenses as in the financial implications of going into that. But I would not really say it was much of a regret, because I thought of what I could do next to be able to reach more people outside Lagos. That was when I came up with the concept of using mobile technology to empower people. So now, aside that we simplify the right of people or safeguards, I myself and 50 lawyers working with me, we are on the platform where we respond daily to human rights issues that arise in people's daily lives. So on a daily basis, people use a platform to reach us and seek for pro bono legal services. Not only that, some people even call us on phones because we have a dedicated lines where we respond to a lot of people. And aside that, we also have on the platform where we link people to some agencies of government saddled with the responsibility of human rights. For example, if one is violated by a police officer in Nigeria, for example, so easily on the same platform, you can get connected to the Nigerian Police Public Response Unit, where you can report violation of your rights by the police officers. And something actually happened, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, where a young man was putting on a camo in Nigeria. And military officers in Nigeria, they don't like you when you are a civilian and you put on a military camo. So military identified this young man for putting on a camo, and they really, really attacked the young man. And I could see on the social media when it was trending, people said, please, let's report all these military officers who are violating the right of this young man through Know Your Right Nigerian platform. And interestingly, we've put on that platform, if an army officer violates your rights, you can actually get to the Nigerian Army Human Rights Desk. So people were bombarding the human rights desk with a lot of calls because we've already made their contact available to the people. And those guys were actually apprehended. And the top echelon of the military officer had to locate the man that was, right was violated, that was attacked. Not only that, they offer public apology, not only that, the guy was actually paid a sum of 20 million naira, 2 million naira as compensation. They got those guys arrested and they face prosecution. So if I'd known that technology would have been of help all this while, probably I would have made use of technology earlier than when we start making use of it.
That's just so insightful, how much technology can amplify your work and how much the capacity that technology has in modern human rights activism to just amplify your work and ensure that persons who violate the law are held to account. So thank you, Adeola. And Lucas, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Hillary. Yeah, I think one of the key elements that I have to mention, and it's really very much related to social, social media, not social media, but networking, to say so, which can be held by social media, is the fact that if I would go back to my university years, I would think that the first thing I would do is to be the first advocate to convince my peers, my university colleagues, and my even friends from Equatorial Guinea that we were from time to time meeting together, to be the first ones for them to be the first one to sort of try to debate about human rights already there. I'm saying this because you would find yourself in a situation where there is a different perceptions. Always there is a different perception of what the reality is, and sometimes it's simply because you have different levels of information, different levels of knowledge in general of what is going on. And I think one of the things I would have done differently would be to maybe build an association already by then with my with friends and with people that would aim at advocating for human rights. And again, I'm saying this because after a while, I have the sense that maybe I'm a bit older than Adeola, but maybe not. But I have a sense that after a while, those are the networks that you build from the early start of your career that will help you perform at the highest level later on. And in countries like Equatorial Guinea, by the way, it's only 1 million inhabitants. So imagine compared to what Adeola had to face in Nigeria. But even with that, it's not so easy to get to everyone or to get to the people for many reasons. One is because of limitations. The government does not open. I mean, the internet is not cheap. It's one of the most expensive internet costs in Africa, and I would say even around the world. And then freedom of expression is not it's not something people would enjoy as easy as anywhere else. So I'm saying this because those were, if I had the chance to get stronger networks built back in the time, I would overcome these difficulties much easier by now. In a recent paper I sort of published with the National Endowment for Democracy, I discussed a bit about how, at least in Equatorial Guinea, the COVID-19 managed to sort of push towards a bit of a change, a bit of people willing to be more outspoken now in the social media. I'm saying this because in my country, at least, it's not easy at all to be outspoken, to speak about the problems you have, to claim your rights in general. But social media, as Adeola was saying, it has helped a lot that, and the COVID-19 forced even the authorities to allow cheaper internet, first of all, and then it's been more, it reaches more audiences in the country. I have to say it's not as much as I would have liked to be, but I think it's a key opportunity for anyone in this job to make a good use of social media. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's really insightful. And just when you spoke about the importance of networking, it just reminded me of the fact that no man, no woman, nobody's an island. And so you need to connect with other persons who are doing the work that you do, or who at least share the same values as you. And that's a really powerful way to amplify your work and make the most of the time and opportunities that you have. I can see that we have a question in the chat. And Brenda says, what are the best ways for lawyers in the West to support grassroots human rights movements on the ground without taking over the narrative? And I think this question is open to any of the panelists, and it's important to also, just to add to that, to consider the question in light of the fact that the world is more and more of a global village, and as you mentioned earlier, nobody's an island, and it's always an opportunity. There is always an opportunity for lawyers in the global north to collaborate with lawyers in the global south. So does anyone want to answer the question?
I can a bit, if Adeola allows me, I can quickly share some of the examples of things I think I've worked on. Of course, it's difficult when you're based in the West. And again, I did most of my career in Europe, so I relate to what can be what could be that position. I think sometimes we think that there is there is no so many ways to help, but there are a lot of support that can be provided. And there are organizations like the International Bar Association, if you're part of it, or there are other NGOs that could make very good use of the support. But one of the key elements that I think I faced almost personally, in some of the cases, is how to escalate a lot of the cases that I was helping build in Equatorial Guinea. So escalating meaning in bringing them to higher courts, in maybe in the African Union first Human Rights Court, or at the Geneva level, or at the UN Human Rights Committee. So this is something that, as a human rights lawyer in the West, that's something that could be very helpful to see what can be, how can we support those cases, and having meeting with some of the local lawyers and say, okay, you have this case, we think that this can be escalated to further up, if you didn't have a solution, of course, in the local courts. That's I think one of the challenges I have faced. And the other thing is that always the support, I keep saying this, always the support to both local lawyers, because by the way, the local lawyers, as Adeola would maybe, of course, say, they face a lot of challenges themselves. They can be arrested just for doing their job when they are defending others. But the network, the working with them in networks and getting them to be known about for their work, it's important, because that somehow sometimes protects them. So that's a few ideas that can be shared there.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay, just to add to what Lucas has just mentioned. Yes, the synergy is actually needed. Those who are into human rights, fighting for people's rights, defending the oppressed, come with a lot of risk. So we need to cohere together. We need to work together. So like Lucas rightly mentioned, if anything happens in the course of Lucas, for example, God forbid, is being threatened as a result of speaking truth to power, it's my responsibility in Nigeria to escalate it and let the world knows that Lucas, for standing for the right of the people, for being the voice for the voiceless, is being threatened. So, and it works. If we escalate this, international pressure works on all these leaders, because immediately they know that you expose them because they are touching people who are expanding frontiers of human rights. It's make them to think twice at times and change their position. So, and aside that, I understand the concept of universality of human rights, that human rights is everywhere all over the world. Don't also forget the concept of relativism of human rights in Africa that believes, okay, human right has to be local. Okay, the challenges of human rights in Nigeria may not be what is obtainable in Equatorial Guinea. And likewise, the general challenges of human rights in Africa may not be the same thing with what is happening in the West. But we should not forget the fact that the approach, the methodology, the formats that we are using in our various jurisdictions to promote and protect people's rights can also be replicated, okay, in other jurisdictions. So we need working together where we can learn what works in one jurisdiction and replicate it in another jurisdiction. And we can also work together, at least to stand and defend any of us when anytime speaking to truth to power is being seen or is being used to winch anybody who is standing for the right of the people.
Thank you very much. That's really insightful. And we are drawing close to the end of our session. And so if anyone has any question, feel free to put it into the chat and we will respond to it on the live sessions as much as time permits. And I was just wondering, this is a theme which has come up over and over again from the both of you, just showing initiative and beginning from your little sphere of influence. And so I just wonder how, as a student, and I feel that this probably applies to lots of students, you often don't feel bold enough or courageous enough to begin an initiative or to start out something to address a problem, because for whatever reason, and this might be common to more students than others, for whatever reason, you just don't feel competent enough to address an issue. And so did any of you over the span of your careers ever feel that you were not good enough, or you just didn't have the confidence to address an issue? And how did you address that? And I think this is something which most people encounter at the start of their careers, because you just don't feel competent enough at the start of your career than, say, you would do 10 or 15 years later.
Okay. In answering this question, let me say to students listening to us at this point in time, that the world is actually looking up to all of us. We law students, whether at the undergraduate level or postgraduate level, the world is looking up to us to use our knowledge, our expertise, what we are learning at this point in time, as tools of social engineering and problem solving. So if the world is looking up to us, we don't need, in fact, we have no justification to disappoint or fail the world that is looking up to us. Now, what is expected of us is think of something. Look at the problem. Think of what you could do to provide solution. Yeah, it could be an idea. When idea is coming, it can be perfect. It's just an idea, okay? And it's always good to have mentors, role models around you, those that will listen to you and assess what you want to do and equally give you advice on how to go about it professionally. Yes, when I wanted to go into radio presentation, it was easier for me because I once had radio presentation experience before going into human rights radio program, okay? But when I was doing radio, it was, when I was younger, it was more of entertainment, but I wanted to do law. So the first thing I was asking people is whether it's permitted, okay, to discuss human rights issues, where rights people will not be violated when they are calling us to share human rights issues, okay, that happen in their daily life. So the guide I wanted to know, and I consulted a lot of people. So they advised that, no, you are not violating any law if what you're just doing is in form of conciliation, alternative dispute resolution. So it's permitted under the law. So it's very, very important. If an idea is coming, do not think, oh, my idea appears to me that it will be criticized. Of course, you have to be criticized before you get it better. So, but I'm talking about constructive criticism here. So you have to identify with role models, share your ideas with them, ask them to guide you or to assess the way you want to go about it, whether it will not violate the laws of the land and so on and so forth. And with this, it's if all the concept is there, I think with the ideas and the advice of the role models or people we have as advisors around us, yes, we can actually go there. Most of the successful innovations we have all over the world today actually started with an idea. And of course, but by virtue of consistency, fantastic planning, having people to advise, and of course, taking those advice that are good, that will actually promote and expand what you're doing, will go a long way.
Thank you so much. You have made so many important points just in such a short time. And, just to amplify them, the importance of mentorship, I can attest to that. they are just simply some things that are best done when you have the guidance of someone who is way more experienced than you and who has probably walked the same path, and so can guide you and help you avoid any pitfalls. And just as important is connecting with others and consistency and being good at what you do through being consistent. So thank you for that. We're approaching the end of the hour, but Lucas, do you have any 2 cents to add? And then we will wrap up.
Yes, I mean, what I would say is that you're allowed to make mistakes. You have to think about, you have just to approach it that way. You're allowed to make mistakes mostly when you started your career. So don't be afraid of doing what you want to do. Just, you have the privilege actually at this stage to make mistakes. Maybe later on you won't be allowed to make those mistakes. So having said that, I'm just saying it because I think the best way I've learned to do things is actually by realizing that I was doing it wrong most of the time. So, and then I learned from that, and from every mistake you make, you can there is a lesson there. And I remember when as I said, when I was putting together this website with the legislation, I didn't know anything about a website or how to use those programs and things like that. And suddenly I started doing it one way or another. Of course, at some point you then realize, okay, you need to make it more professional. You need to put more effort. You need to even invest if you have the funds for that. So but don't make that stop you from pushing your ideas through, because I think at the end of the day, I think as I was saying, when you're a law student and you're coming out of school or finishing school, at least there is something you can already contribute to society. Even before graduating, you already can contribute a lot. And in our societies, a small one like Equatorial Guinea, but big ones like Nigeria, I think there is a lot we can do already by pushing and making those mistakes.
Thank you very much. And just as a parting word, do you have, just one piece of advice to give to students, regardless of whatever anyone decides to pursue? Just one sentence, just do this or do that, or, avoid this or avoid that, or just whatever parting word of advice that you both want to give to students. Okay,
from my part, to the student out there, you've never made any mistake by coming to Columbia University, law school, to study law and to advance what you have by doing your master's of law. You've come to the right place and you've chosen the right career. There is nothing that is going on our daily life activities that has no nexus with human rights. So the whole world is looking up to you to use your knowledge and the expertise you're acquiring at the moment as tools of social engineering and problem solving. In case you are facing challenges at the initial, there is nothing that has its deliverables and outcome without risk. What is expected of us is to stand, since we have our specific activities lined up and we're expecting deliverables, we should do everything possible to mitigate the risk that would deprive us or deny us of our deliverables. And if we're fantastically organized, we are patient and we are consistent, we'll get those deliverables excellently.
Thank you very much. Lucas, over to you.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you very much for having me and the discussion. I don't know if I will be giving the best advice here at all, but I would say simply this. I think we've seen in the recent years, at least, how things have shaped the world, and we can talk about the pandemic, we can talk about the extremism in the West and other countries. And we are facing things and issues that are very similar at the end of the day. And I jokingly, I remember a year or so ago, I was telling some friends of mine in the US that they should hire us as consultants because we are experts in dealing with this type of dictatorships in Africa, in some countries that we see almost how Trump was acting in a way. I'm just putting it jokingly because everybody can have an idea. But my point was, we could face exact similar situations, and we like it or not, we are linked to each other, and we need to think that whatever justice we do in our small local community has an impact in 10,000 miles away from where we are, which means you have to stand for your rights, and defend them, of course, as lawyers.
Thank you, both of you, very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for just making out the time to come here and share with us from your experience. And just to wrap up, I will just quickly run over some of the very key themes and points you made over the course of the webinar. So, show initiative, wherever you are, whatever stage you are in your career. 1L, it doesn't matter. There are problems for you to solve, and there are people who can gain from both your undergraduate experience and your whatever limited law school experience you have. And just as important, you are allowed to make mistakes. So you do not have to think that you have to be perfect. As Lucas said, at this stage of your career, you are allowed and permitted to make mistakes. Maybe later on, not so much, but right now you can make mistakes. And Adeola mentioned making the most of technology as something he would probably have done way better. Make the most of technology beyond just using technology for fun and recreational purposes. You can use it to advance your work, advance your career. And Lucas mentioned patience, being patient in developing yourself, being patient in pursuing your goals. Adeola mentioned being consistent. Consistency, hard work is simply the way to go. And finally, eliminate all forms of distraction. So in order to reach your end goal in whatever you have planned or decided for yourself, you cannot do that as effectively as you would if you do not eliminate every form of distraction. So thank you to Lucas, and thank you to Adeola for taking out the time to speak with us. We are very grateful for just making out this time. We know it's probably late evening in Portugal and in Nigeria, so thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who attended. 10 lucky attendants will get gift cards, so be on the lookout for that in your email, and enjoy the rest of your day. So bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.